Hello there. So in this notebook, we're going to go over how to analyze subreddits. What we're going to do is take a list of subreddits. In this case, we're looking at sort of location ones. How does the Bay Area compare to Austin and New York City? But you could really do any subreddit. This code is just a variable. You can change it to whatever you want. And the goal of what we're doing here is trying to understand, are there any differences in the various cities? Do people in Austin trend towards gun ownership a little bit more, if that's a big issue for you? How many people there seem more interested in child-free or thinking about children? It could be another thing. It just could be interesting to see, what are the big differences in different cities. All right, so in here, it's a bit too slow for me to run, especially in New York City. It took 7 minutes, so I'm not going to run that all live for you here, but I've already run this, and I'll just show you the output of what happened. So I've gone through and I've written code for subreddit and subreddit. So each subreddit, we're going to look at, let's see here, the top 25 posts. That's what this N is. I'll just add a comment here. Number of subreddit posts to read. I'm searching by month. You could do it by recent. You could extend N to be a very big number if you want to get a bigger sample of things. And then what we're going to do, though, is take the comments in that post, and then we're going to find a map of users. So we're going to say these 25 people, or these, it's much more than 25 actually, but all the people interacted in this post are users of the subreddit. So let's look at all of their interest and what they've done and see how that compares. Also, just because we did it in the first notebook, I'm storing all the domain names too that are linked to the top 25 posts of the month. Okay, so here's our users. You see the counts of the different users user counted posts. So when I grabbed 25 posts, I got 2K Bay Area people, a little over 3K NYC, and 2609 Austin. So if this was old, pretty similar counts. I wouldn't even say that. Pretty large number of user counts. We found a bunch of users we could use. And then what I've done here is I'm just going to take a sample of the top 1,000 users. And from that, we'll go through all their interests like we did last time, but then I'm going to tailor it to things that I think are more interesting in terms of categories from a would you move here subreddit, or how is this city compared to this city? Say you're looking at some other use case, can't really think of one off the top of my head, but always think about what you're trying to do as you're doing it and what data you choose to collect. Because if you try to collect everything, there's way too much. But if you try to focus, what would I care about if I'm thinking about moving here? That's a much smaller list, and it'll be more informative for you and better use of your time. So here we go. You should recognize this from that 3.1 notebook. Exact same code, except I added the TQDM. There it is. So that's the thing that gives this progress bar. It messes up if you have to do a print statement. So a few users had an issue. And when I checked most of these, it looked like they were banned from Reddit for some reason. So that could be an interesting metric. In this case, I'm just choosing to ignore it. All right, so here's all of our data. Last time we had maybe 1,000 rows. This time we've got 405,000 rows of data. We have the user, the source subreddit, that's where we found that user, and the subreddit where they interacted. Okay, and I've stored this data frame. I probably won't post it with the video, but if you want it, let me know. I could probably upload it. Otherwise, your data is going to be very different because this is top 25 posts by month. And as time changes, top changes. Okay, back in here, exact same stuff as before. We're going to find the interactions first. And this is really a bit bigger. So you can see last time I think we had just 300 columns. Now we got 18,500 columns. Quite a big difference. So I'm not going to show every single one of those. It's a bit too much. And then here we're looking at the interactions again. So how many rows did more than one person interact in? And as you might expect, the subreddits that we found people in are sort of the highest interaction counts. And there's even a bit of overlap because we only sampled 1,000 people. and we see 1,003 people posted in Austin. So that means 3 people came from Bay Area or NYC to post in Austin. Yeah. All right, so yeah, that's the count of how many distinct users, and this is the average number of interactions. And I believe this doesn't count nulls as a number, it just skips them. So if you're trying to do an average, it's just with the values that have a value, and pros and cons to do it in different ways. Yeah. Okay, I need to reduce my to-do because I did do that. All right, so similar as before, it just re-showed the same thing, sorted by count. Yeah, so this is not really necessary. Okay, so here, like before, I had this to categorize thing, and I've spent a lot more time going through this. There is a huge list of things that I, like I said, I literally went through every single one of these. And I was like, does this matter? Doesn't it? It might seem daunting, but it's not too bad. Your brain can work pretty quick, and maybe you miss things. It's not too bad. I believe I've sorted things by. At one point, I sorted things. Where's that? Yeah, I sorted these. I believe by how often people. What's the word? Sort of posted and things. Yeah, so I only took the people who had more than 10 interacting in a subreddit, so that's count greater than 10. And then I sorted by the count, ascending false, so it's going to be top down. Most interactions in common are placed at the top of the list. Another thing that might be better is to look at sort of the max overlap between the different subreddits, because we care about, comparing things. Anyways, I'll just look through a couple of these that are kind of interesting. So LGBTQ plus, I believe, is the vernacular. Gay bros gone mild. That's probably people who are interested in gay bros. So probably LGBTQ plus. So a lot of these, there's lots of subreddits that you can sort of see if someone leans that way or is just sort of interested in it. And then different things here like sports. So how much do people care about sports in these various cities? Liberal, I said I would break this up last time, and I did. And if you can think of subreddits that matter more or are more informative, just add them when you run this. Create your own categories. It's not, it's not too hard just to add your own thing. Yeah, just type it in. Guns is another interesting one. Found a lot of different names for guns. Liberal gun owners is an interesting one too. So you can be sure that they're liberal. It's nice when people self-subscribe to stuff like that. Anyways, check interest again, same as last time, same exact notebook as before. This took 43 minutes. So there's quite a lot of columns we have to check, and there's probably some optimizations you can do. Just to tell you the concept, this could be represented as a sparse matrix. There's quite a lot of nulls in here. So when you use certain algorithms with like scikit-learn, look for using the sparse matrix version rather than the full matrix. It'll spend a lot less computational time. Anyways, back moving forward here. So we've got our user profiles like before. We can see comment karma of every single user, post karma, and then all their interest. I did this little funky, I guess I didn't. Later I have this little funky regex to look through interest and interactions. That's this clip user profile. But so here's our big matrix of things, and then we're going to compare it like we did last time. So here I'm clipping the user profile to a max value of 1. So I don't really care if someone posted 20 times and asked guns. I only want to count it 1 time. Did they do this? Did they not? It's a little bit simpler to analyze if you just look for, a Boolean, did this or didn't this, versus, trying to understand counts. Like say you take the mean of counts, it doesn't quite work at telling you the percent of people that interacted in something. But if you take the mean where it's a Boolean, then you get sort of the average number of people interacting in something. Hope that was clear. It's a little confusing, but yeah. All right, so here we look at the mean. So this is the percent of users, like I mentioned before I wanted to do, who are interested in gaming. So of all the people I found in the Austin subreddit, 30%, 30.6 are interested in gaming. And not a lot of differences, honestly, with gaming. Alcohol-free, very small percentage of people. And what else here? So yeah, I want to be honest. When I did this, nothing really jumped out as very interesting, unfortunately, and that's sort of the crux of data. Sometimes it isn't that interesting. I would say someone can take this and maybe you can find something better in the analysis. There's a few things I'll call out here, but also there's sort of a catch-22 of doing data science or data reporting. It's you want to find something interesting because you did all this work, but you don't want to force it either because then that's sort of lying. So there's some statistical tests you could be like, hey, this is significant based on the number of responses I got. A difference of 2% from Bay Area to NYC is actually significant, or you could find out, maybe that isn't significant. So that's something to be sort of mindful of too if you want to report on very small differences. Just maybe look at like a t-test or something to see why that, see if that is considered significant, although lots of caveats and stats, they don't even like confidence intervals anymore. Anyways, so one interesting thing, people interested in Apple, New York City was much more than Austin and the Bay Area. That was kind of surprising. 12.98% compared to 7.86% and then in Austin. So I don't know if it's, maybe they have more money, the more status symbols in New York City. Can't even talk, so excited. But yeah, it's just, that was kind of interesting. Also, interest in child-free. So one way to read this is, they match one of my categories. So they're the most interested and most likely to be child-free, but I would caution you on that. It just sort of means they interacted in a subreddit, discussing things that someone interested in kids is thinking about. So say someone's looking up vasectomy, maybe they're just looking for an opposing viewpoint. It doesn't mean they believe it. So just something to think about when you're trying to draw inference from these categories. It's not always a positive thing. Sometimes I'll subscribe to like conservative or liberal when I'm not really far off on either way. It's sort of nice to get a different perspective sometimes. Some things are very extreme in one ideology, but it can be cool to be like, oh, what are the Joe Rogan people talking about? And then you can sort of look on the other side, some Twitter personalities I can't even think of right now, but more woke people too. You subscribe to them and then you learn things, and it's different than just endorsing what they say. It's just sort of learning about it. All right, so yeah, that's pretty much it. Guns, that was probably the best one that I found. 7.9% Austin gun ownership compared to Bay Area and NYC. Also curly hair. I have curly hair, so I was just trying to see that just for kicks. But yeah, most things were surprisingly similar. Even interest in tech, I thought that would be very strong in Bay Area compared to NYC. But if you look at this, it's 35% Bay Area, 34.6% New York City. So it's like that's not that much different. Maybe it's a lot of those Apple people carrying over. That sort of got flagged by my tech category. But yeah, this is conservative too. Surprisingly, and New York City Reddit users trended more conservative than Austin. So I was quite surprised by that too. Maybe it's sort of the finance bent. And let's see, liberal here. I don't think that was too exciting. Yeah, so they also were pretty high on liberal, so maybe they're just more interested in politics too. So there's that sort of confounder to be aware of. All right, and just to sort of show you, it's not hard to do. You can create a correlation matrix and plot it. So you can see how people compare with their different interests. Like someone who is interested in being conservative probably wouldn't show up high on liberal. And you go down here, sort of how you read these are kind of a pain, but you can see, that's a negative correlation. On the right there, the sort of bluish color is negative. The strongest correlation is like Apple and tech. I think there's some overlap in my categories there. Surprisingly, interest in child, that's not surprising. I was misreading that. Really a web view where you sort of hover your mouse over this is much easier to read. This is just a notebook, a Jupyter notebook. But LGBTQ plus and child free, that's a strong correlation. Makes sense. And that's probably the strongest correlation I see in this because I think tech did have Apple in the as sort of some of the categories. There's some overlap there, whereas this one's a little bit different. A lot of gay bros going mild and that stuff. Not like vasectomy. I guess, maybe bi people will do vasectomies too. I don't know. Lots to think about, but yeah, here you go. This is some basic analysis comparing two subreddits. The main crux of what we have here is you can take, given subreddit, get a huge corpus, like a collection of text for every single post, and then you can do with it whatever you want. The technology or the sort of algorithms called NLP, natural language processing, and you can use that to do a ton of different analysis. I've just plotted one that I thought would be interesting. It wasn't as exciting as I thought, but I hope it shows you a good starting point for your own research efforts. Thanks for watching. I'll do one more video on this stuff, at least scheduled, on scraping more data, getting around that 1,000 post limit that Redshift posts. Or sorry, not Redshift, PushShift. Thanks.